Ever get the feeling like there's this whole rule book for how the world really works and nobody gave you a copy?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, today we are cracking open one that's for sure controversial.
Yeah.
Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
And this one's got a real reputation.
It does.
For laying bare all those strategies people use to, get influence, hold on to it, fend off rivals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pulling lessons from people who knew a thing or two about power.
Right.
Machiavelli, Sun Tzu.
For sure.
Yeah.
We've got a fascinating summary here that really, I think, distills Greene's core arguments.
Okay.
It's basically like a catalog, almost,
Yeah.
of 48 time-tested tactics pulled from, centuries of history, from, royal courts to the battlefield.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a book that always gets people talking.
It does. It does. And the philosophy underneath it all, it's not exactly, warm and fuzzy.
Right.
This summary does a good job of boiling it down, though.
Yeah.
Greene basically says power's not this abstract thing.
Yep.
It's a game.
Definitely.
It's got rules, and you're either playing by them or getting played.
That's right.
He also says letting your emotions drive the bus, well,
Yeah, that's a recipe for
it's
disaster.
a recipe for ending up in a ditch.
That's right.
And then there's this idea, keeps popping up, strategic deception can actually be pretty darn effective.
It can be.
And maybe the most, powerful point he makes.
Yeah.
What people believe.
Yes.
Often more important than any objective truth.
100%.
Right.
And it's a very, direct, sometimes uncomfortable viewpoint.
Yeah, it is.
But our goal with this whole deep dive
Right.
isn't to say this is how things should be,
Right.
but to look at how these power dynamics that Greene lays out
Yeah.
actually play out in the real world.
Okay.
We want to give you, the listener, a clearer lens to look through
Yeah.
at these strategies,
Yeah.
whether or not you agree with them, whether you're, dealing with a crazy workplace trying to make sense of history or just, watching how people act.
Yeah, yeah.
These are some potent ideas
Okay.
to keep in mind.
So let's jump into this first law.
All right.
This is a bit of a head scratcher.
Okay.
Never outshine the master.
Hmm.
You'd think the goal is always to be the best, right?
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But what's really interesting here is the psychology of it all.
Okay.
It's not about, hiding your talents.
Right.
It's about how you present them,
Okay.
especially around those in charge.
All right.
The basic idea is making your superiors feel threatened.
Yeah.
Even if you don't mean to,
Okay.
it can backfire.
Right, right.
They might see you as competition, whether they realize it or not.
Okay.
So it's less about, dimming your own light
Yeah.
and more about aiming it strategically.
Interesting.
Shine it on the master.
Okay.
Make their achievements look even more impressive.
Yeah.
Then you become an asset, not a rival.
Oh, I see. That's clever. This summary uses the example of Galileo,
Oh, right.
dedicating all those discoveries to the Medici family.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about getting funding.
No.
It was a way to make those powerful folks
Yeah.
feel like they were champions of progress,
Exactly.
not getting shown up by it.
Exactly. Or a balancing act, managing egos like that.
Right.
And if we, zoom out a bit, it raises a big question about how we view ambition
Yeah.
and how to climb those ladders, without ruffling feathers.
Yeah. All right. Law number 2.
Okay.
This one's a little tougher to stomach, I think, for those of us who, really value loyalty. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That sounds pretty cynical, doesn't it?
Well, it does have a bit of an edge to it, yeah.
Yeah.
But the logic, at least as it's presented here, in the summary,
Yeah.
is that friends, they can get envious.
Yeah.
They can be moody.
Yeah.
They might feel entitled to your help without giving you that same rock-solid support back.
Yeah. I see.
Enemies, on the other hand, once you've won them over,
Yeah.
might feel like they've got something to prove
Okay.
and can actually become really reliable allies.
Interesting.
So their whole motivation shifts.
Okay. The example from The Godfather where Michael Corleone puts his trust in Fredo.
Oh, right.
That's rough.
Yeah, that doesn't end well.
Really drives this point home.
It does.
Family doesn't always hold up
No.
when power's involved.
No, it doesn't. It highlights the difference between, those emotional bonds
Right.
and those strategic partnerships.
Okay.
This law is saying, look beyond just who you like
Right.
and really assess people based on their motives
Yeah.
and what they might do.
Right. What do they stand to gain or lose?
Exactly.
All right. Law number 3, it takes us into the strategy zone.
Okay.
Conceal your intentions. Keep everyone guessing about your real aims.
Yeah, keep them in the dark.
Hmm.
The summary emphasizes, if you're not obvious about what you're going for,
Right.
people can't really build up a defense.
Okay.
They can't figure out how to block you.
Right.
It's about having that element of surprise.
I gotcha.
And, more than just surprise,
Yeah.
concealing your intentions, it creates uncertainty.
Yeah.
People waste energy trying to figure you out,
Right.
which makes them, more likely to slip up,
Right. Right.
to hesitate.
Man, that poker analogy, it works so well here.
It does, doesn't it?
You don't show your cards.
No.
You bluff, you mislead.
Yep.
All to get ahead. It's like controlling the flow of information.
Exactly. And in a broader sense, this law is about the power of being vague. Sometimes what you don't say
Yeah.
can have more of an impact
Right.
than just putting it all out there.
Yeah. It forces people to fill in the blanks themselves and maybe get it wrong.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to law number 6. This one feels especially relevant today with everybody fighting for attention.
It does.
Court attention at all costs.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big one.
Absolutely. The summary really hits the nail on the head when it says that being visible often translates to power.
Right.
If you fade into the background, you risk becoming irrelevant.
Yeah.
This law says you got to cultivate a public image,
Okay.
even if that means stirring up some controversy.
Yeah.
Think about it. How often do you hear about people losing influence
Yeah.
because they were keeping a low profile?
Right. The example they give, celebrities using scandals to stay in the news.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most, upstanding move,
Right.
but it proves the point.
It does.
Even bad attention is still attention.
Exactly.
Keeps you in the conversation.
Keeps people talking.
It does. What I find really interesting is how this works across different areas.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a company fighting for market share or a politician trying to get votes that need to stay in the public eye.
Yeah.
It's constant.
It's fundamental.
All right, now we're getting into a bit of a darker one.
Okay.
Law number 15, crush your enemy totally. No half measures here.
No, not at all.
Not according to Greene.
No. The idea here, as the summary explains it, is that if you don't completely win,
Right.
you leave room for resentment,
Yeah.
which can turn into revenge later on.
Okay.
The summary talks about how dangerous it can be to be, merciful,
Right.
to go easy on your opponents,
Yeah.
because they might just hold a grudge and wait for their moment.
Man, that example of Julius Caesar pardoning Brutus.
Oh, yeah.
Only to be,
Yeah,
killed by him later. That's chilling.
it is. It's a stark reminder
It is.
of what can happen
Yeah.
when you don't fully eliminate a threat.
Right.
This law, it forces us to confront the reality of conflict
Right.
and that there has to be a clear winner. It suggests that when you're going for power,
Yeah.
anything less than total victory
Yeah.
can be a mistake.
The strategic mistake.
Exactly.
Okay. Law 17. Now we're getting into some serious mind games.
Yeah.
Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Honestly, that just sounds tiring.
Oh, it probably is. It takes a
Ah.
lot of, calculated effort to pull that off.
Right.
But the goal, as the summary lays out, is to make people too afraid to challenge you.
Okay.
If you're unpredictable, if they never know what you'll do next,
Yeah.
they'll be afraid to make a move against you.
Right. They don't know what the consequences would be.
Exactly. They're afraid of the unknown.
Yeah. They use Stalin's random purges as an example.
Oh, right.
That's a pretty dark,
It is.
disturbing illustration.
It is, but it's effective.
Yeah.
That constant fear, that uncertainty,
Yeah.
kept everybody in line.
Kept everybody in line.
It's a grim example of how powerful uncertainty can be.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
It's getting into how to use psychology
It is.
to manipulate people for power.
Definitely.
Okay. Moving on to something that sounds kind of like reverse psychology.
Okay.
Law 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark.
Oh, that's a classic.
It is a classic.
The genius of this one, as I see it, is that it disarms your opponent.
Okay.
If they think you're naive, if they think you're not that bright,
Right.
they underestimate you.
Yeah.
They let their guard down.
Right.
And they end up revealing stuff they shouldn't,
Okay.
or making mistakes you can use against them.
So you're basically using deception,
You are.
but by making yourself seem incompetent.
Exactly. It's all about perception.
I see. Like that example with Warren Buffett,
Oh, yeah. Good one.
sometimes acting all humble and folksy
Right.
when he's making deals,
Yeah,
shows how appearing unassuming can be an advantage.
absolutely. It can.
Because people are more likely to be honest,
Yeah.
more likely to open up around someone they don't see as a threat.
Right. They're less guarded.
Right. Law 33 gets really personal.
All right.
Discover each man's thumbscrew. Finding and exploiting those little weaknesses, you know?
Yeah, those pressure points
To gain control.
to gain control.
Yeah.
This law, according to the summary,
Yeah.
is all about understanding what makes people tick
Okay.
and what makes them vulnerable.
Right?
Everyone's got a thumbscrew,
Yeah.
a weakness.
A weak man.
Could be vanity, could be greed, could
Yeah.
be fear, something deep down.
Right.
And if you know how to find it,
Yeah.
and you know how to press on it,
Yeah.
you've got leverage
Right.
over them.
Yeah. They use blackmail as an example.
Yeah, that's a bit extreme.
Pretty extreme.
But it gets the point across.
It does.
Yeah.
Taking someone's secrets,
Yeah.
their fears, and using them
Yeah.
to get what you want.
It's a blunt example.
It is.
But it shows how you can use someone's weaknesses against them.
Right. It's about those unspoken power dynamics between people.
It is. It's a bit uncomfortable to think about.
It is. It is. Okay, finally, we've got Law 48.
Okay.
Assume formlessness.
Be like water.
Yeah, adaptable.
Adaptable. Fluid.
Fluid.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is key, especially in a world that's always changing.
Yeah.
The summary makes it clear. If you're stuck in your ways, if you can't bend,
Right.
you're going to break.
Yeah.
But if you can adapt,
Yeah.
be flexible, even unpredictable,
Yeah.
that's how you stay powerful.
You know, think about it. A rigid structure, easy to break.
Oh, yeah.
Something that flows around obstacles.
Right.
Much harder to stop.
Much harder. The example they use, guerrilla warfare.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect example.
Good one.
Those traditional armies, with their formations and their rules,
Yeah.
they get outsmarted by the guys who can change tactics on the fly.
Yeah, the ones who adapt to the situation.
To the terrain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It really shows how important it is to be agile.
It's,
Be fluid
it is.
if you want to succeed in the long run.
Yeah.
In any kind of competition.
Right. To be able to flow around the obstacles and seize new opportunities as they pop up.
Yeah. You got to go with the flow.
You do.
Okay. We can't talk about the 48 laws of power without addressing the elephant in the room.
Right.
This thing's controversial.
It is.
And the summary doesn't shy away from that. It talks about people calling it manipulative, amoral,
Yeah.
even comparing it to a handbook for, well,
For
sociopaths, yeah.
Yeah, those are some harsh words.
They are.
And it's really important, for you, the listener,
Right.
to understand that this book, it presents a very, very strategic and sometimes, let's be honest, ruthless view of power.
Yeah.
Whether or not you think it's okay to actually use these laws, well,
Yeah.
that's a big question.
It's a big question.
Something you got to think about carefully.
It is. You know, the summary also points out that these laws, they might make more sense
Right.
in those really competitive worlds like business
Yeah. Basically.
or politics.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably wouldn't use all of these tactics
Right.
with your friends and family.
Right.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Context matters.
Context matters.
A lot.
But even if you decide not to actively, use these strategies,
Right.
the way the book lays them out,
Right.
understanding them can still be really useful.
Oh, for sure.
It can help you spot when other people are using them on you.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It's like having a secret decoder ring
Yeah.
for human behavior.
Yeah. You know, the read if avoid if section in the summary,
Yeah,
that's gold.
it is.
If you want to understand like the nuts and bolts of power,
Yeah,
it's worth a read.
it is.
But if you're all about ethical, collaborative leadership,
Right.
might not be your cup of tea.
It might clash with your values a bit.
Yeah. It might. And that 4 out of 5-star rating,
Yeah.
with that warning about being brilliant but dangerous,
Yeah.
that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah, it really does. It highlights that double-edged sword aspect.
Yeah.
This knowledge, it can help you understand people,
Yeah.
understand how society works.
Yeah.
But like any powerful tool,
Right.
you got to be careful with it.
You got to be careful with it. You know, that last thought in the summary, that's really important.
It is.
It's saying this book isn't a guide to being good or evil.
No.
It's a look at how power works
Yeah.
in the real world.
In the real world.
No sugarcoating.
No sugarcoating.
Whether or not you use these insights, well,
Yeah.
that's up to you.
That's on you.
That's a moral choice.
It is. It's really more of an observation
Yeah.
than a set of instructions.
Right.
It's showing us things about power
Yeah.
that people don't usually talk about,
Yeah.
those hidden truths.
Right. So to sum it all up for you, our listener, this deep dive into the 48 laws of power,
Yeah.
it's a look at a pretty stark
Yeah.
and very strategic way.
Strategic and very influential.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's this constant push and pull
Yeah.
between using effective tactics, which sometimes can be pretty ruthless,
Yeah.
and, that whole ethical side of having power.
You know, what I find really fascinating
Yeah.
is how these laws, these timeless laws,
Yeah.
they still apply today.
Yeah, they do.
Even if we dress them up in nicer language.
They do.
Understanding them can help us make sense of people.
Yeah.
Understand how our systems work.
Right.
Our organizations, our whole society.
So think about it. Even if you wouldn't use these laws yourself,
Right.
how does just knowing about them
Yeah.
change how you see the world?
Yeah. How you see other people's actions.
Something to chew on.
It is. It raises another question, too,
Okay.
about, awareness,
Yeah.
thinking critically. How does recognizing these strategies
Yeah.
change how you understand people's motives
Right.
and what happens in your life and the world around you?
Wow. Big questions.
Big questions.
Well, thanks for diving into the world of power with us.
My pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.